Hello, Trombone Internet. This is Chris Van Hoff, assistant to the regional manager of the International Trombone Festival. We at the festival, of course, are huge fans of the pod, and we are really excited to invite you to attend this year's 2024 International Trombone Festival at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. Dave Begnosh is our host. We have the world premiere of a brand new double concerto for trombone and piano with the Fort Worth Symphony. We have the American Brass Quintet. We have late night jazz featuring a Latin jam session. Like, everything is happening. All the cast will be there. It's the best hang in the world, and we hope to see you there. You can register for the festival still online at www.internationaltrombonefestival.com, and it's happening the last week of May. So go register. We'll see you in Texas.
Welcome to the Trombone Retreat, podcast of the Third Coast Trombone Retreat. Today on the podcast, we hang out with the gentlemen of the Trombone Corner Podcast, John Snell and Noah Gladstone. My name is Sebastian Vera, and Nick Schwartz is currently making loud sounds in a pit somewhere and will join us shortly. So we've been wanting to do this podcast actually ever since we started. Noah started his podcast with John Snell, his business partner at Bob Reeves Brass, about the same time we were starting ours. And so I sent him a message and I said, hey man, that's a very random coincidence, but I wish you all the best of luck. And we got to do something together sometime. And he was definitely game. So we're Spider-Man memeing with the Trombone Corner. So I'll be honest, I just spent about 2 hours editing this podcast, and then everything crashed, and this has never happened to me before. And so I had to start all over again and edit another 2 hours. So my brain is somewhat fried. It's 11:30 at night, and we need to post this in about 30 minutes. But this is what I do for you because I love you. So for you equipment nerds, this is your podcast. If you want to take a break from us talking about our feelings and crying and everything and just getting down to brass tacks, this is a really cool episode. Noah is an encyclopedia of history of mouthpieces and brass instruments, especially trombones, and it was a delightful conversation. I really resonate with him in a lot of ways. He's just a doer, and he's created so many things and continues to do things, and has an amazing production company called Hollywood Scoring, and he's an active studio musician, has the Brass Ark that many people probably know him from. And John Snell, his partner, is a trumpet player, but we allowed it. He is the co-owner of Bob Reeves Brass. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. So it's a crossover podcast. They're also interviewing us on theirs, and we're releasing at the same time. And we're both actually going to be at TMEA coming up in a few days, Texas Music Educators Association Conference in San Antonio, Texas. It's a gigantor music festival with every vendor you can imagine. So I'll be there at the Houghton Horns table. Please come say hi. I'll be hanging out with Trombone Timo. And if you haven't heard yet, check out the episode we just did with social media trombone superstar Trombone Timo that we know as Tim Maines. For some reason, it posted on the feed as coming out January 1st, even though it came out February 1st, so it might not have popped up in your notifications, so double check it. It might be further down the list, but it was an awesome episode with really fascinating insights into the world of social media and how he's built his following. He'll be there with Brasswitch, and I'll be releasing my first very limited batch JSV tenor trombone mouthpieces. They just came out and they just arrived at Houghton Horns. And I'm clearly biased, but they're absolutely beautiful. I've been working on this for 2 years, and it's been a long process, and we really wanted to get this right, and they just came out really special, and I'm just really excited to share it with everyone. So come by the table. There's not many in the first batch, but they're also available for pre-order for those who can't make it. So it's currently on the Houghton Horns website now, and if you order it now, you can get 10% off with the offer code JSV Presale. So you can find all the specs and all the information on the Houghton Horns website, but we're trying something different. purity of sound, incredible response and articulation. We're searching for the holy grail of rich overtones, ring and sweetness paired with depth of sound, and we really found it. So go check out Houghton Horns. Come visit us at the table. Go visit Bob Reeves' table. But yeah, if you want to listen in order, technically they interviewed us first. So feel free if you want to go listen to theirs first and come back, or listen to this and go back. Either way, go check out their podcast. These are amazing guys. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was really enlightening, and these are just really great guys. So I need to go edit this and fall asleep. So enjoy the podcast. We're here. Cool. Well, I mean, this is super fun. I'm really glad. We've been talking about doing something like this for a while, and I'm glad we somehow navigated these time zones and made it work. So have you guys interviewed people in like 8 hours away? I mean, it's
we just had Adam Wolf on Sack
Oh,
Brothers.
he's amazing.
He's in Spain.
Yeah.
Real interesting guy, because he just he walked away from the profession during the pandemic. So,
I didn't know that.
He's doing full-time software website design now.
Wow.
Sold his sack butts, and I mean, it's crazy.
That guy is so incredible. Oh my goodness.
I know.
I
know.
But he came back to play the coronation.
He came back to play the coronation. He said he hadn't touched his trombone since the beginning of the pandemic. So real interesting podcast.
I'll definitely check that episode out.
Yeah, really interesting,
sure.
interesting fellow. Lovely, lovely person. Yeah, I'm glad we're finally getting around to this. Yeah,
absolutely. And now we know it's called a sack buttist
or a sac boutier
or sack butter. I mean, sack butter gets a little bit weird when you talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. What do you mean, Noah? Go on.
Sack boner? I don't know. I mean, there's so many weird, like,
is that a bass sack butt behind you?
That is a bass sack butt behind me. I actually have a sack butt gig tonight, if you can believe it or not. So,
wow, flex.
I know. This is one of my bass sack butts.
Do you know that? So. It's like, you ever think about this? That like every day someone puts together a sentence in English that may have not been uttered before.
Yeah,
that's close. Later on today, I'm
going to my sack butt gig, my bass sack butt gig tonight.
My bass sack butt gig.
Well, they do happen from time to time. Very strange. It's for the Los Angeles Organ Guild party holiday.
That sounds like a rip roaring time.
It's going to be great. I don't really know what to expect. I mean, I know a lot of these organists from the early music circles. But they were like, we really like to have some early brass. So we're doing some Pretorius and some Frescobaldi, and we have a cornetto and three trombones. So should be fun, and organ. So
I would love to hear that.
Should be fun.
You should just walk up and say, track or organs suck, and see what happens.
Actually, the digital organs, there are some good digital organs now, but some of the old ones they look, but actually the place we're playing has like a really beautiful reconstruction chamber Baroque organ in it, so it's going to be a nice little venue for this Organ Guild party.
Oh man,
I don't know if there will be costumes. We won't be wearing costumes, but there could be some costumes.
You
there.
Should come in on a penny farthing.
The official transport of the bass sack butt is a penny farthing.
Exactly.
Top hat.
Exactly. I mean, you guys know I'm into instruments, so like I got into period performance when I was in school. And luckily, we had a really excellent early music director at USC when I was doing my master's, named Adam Gilbert, who is just like next level reincarnated early musician. And Alexandra Opsahl from the Royal Conservatory had just moved to LA. Her husband, Ian Pritchard, is a continuo player, and he was doing his doctorate at USC. So all of a sudden we had this like world-class cornetto player in LA. So she was like, let's start a brass group. So that's how we kind of started our nonprofit called Tesserae, which is started as a period string and brass group. And then now we've incorporated vocalists and strings and all sorts of things, and grown that group over the last 13 years, something like that. So
are there recordings that people can look up?
Our website's up there, and we don't do so much stuff with brass anymore, maybe 1 or 2 concerts a year, but it's just been great to do a lot of stuff with that. And then recently another ensembles kind of popped up in LA called Musica Transalpina, and very interesting. The music director for that one is really into period mass reconstruction. So he goes and he finds all these mass manuscripts in libraries. He's very connected with the Catholic Church, and he's got access to these libraries in Europe that only the monks have access to with a lot of these manuscripts. So he's finding all of these things, and we're doing world premieres from like 1600, in the United States, or, US premieres of some of these masses, which are just unbelievable. Some of them have 4 or 5 trombone parts. It's crazy. I didn't know when I picked the trombone how interesting it was going to be, but trombone players were the first like legit professional musicians that were getting paid to play in churches and wedding ceremonies and outdoor events and things like that. And since the instrument is so chromatic and the only one that could play loud and soft at the time, it was everywhere. So who knew how the mighty have fallen, I guess.
And now we have to count 45 minutes of tacit and operas. So how it's
exactly exactly. But I mean, there's nothing more exciting than playing lines in a choir with vocalists where you're an independent line, like you're the playing tenor line, and then there's 3 other vocalists, and to be contributing like that as a chamber musician, like you were saying, Sebastian, is like some of the most satisfying playing that I ever get to do.
Oh man, absolutely. John, I think you're the first. Is this right, Nick? Is this the first trumpet player we've ever allowed?
Well, he owns a soprano trombone, and he has been practicing through the Rochu book. So
Arbans. I've got Arbans.
You haven't done the Rochus yet?
I haven't done the Rochu yet.
I thought you sent me a recording of one. At least you did one.
Well, no. Well, I worked on, what was it? One. What's the famous one? 2.
4.
I was working through
4 is a straight banger.
4. I think.
4.
I think it was number 4.
Pardon my
straight fire.
Yeah.
No. But I'm on page, I think, 75 of the Arbans book. I'm playing through the whole thing, and so I'm an honorary slide user, thanks to Noah. And a beautiful soprano trombone.
I did give John a soprano sackbut actually to noodle around on, because at some point we're gonna need that in a
Bach cantata or something like that
concert. So something like that, we'll need it. So
okay, I have a new idea for the hottest new podcast on the planet. Nick and Noah, you can start a sackbut podcast. And first of all, there's a million titles.
Do you mind if I butt in?
Just be amazing.
It's a working title, but it's a good one.
I love it. I like it.
There's a big niche audience for that, I'm sure. It's gonna be like 10 very, very loyal
it would
listeners.
be actually probably a wider amount of listeners than you imagine. But if we said one slightly factually incorrect thing about the sackbut or the date of a composer or a composition, we would get roasted like you would not believe.
Here's a good sackbut story. I can't remember who was telling me this, but a friend of mine was talking to William Shatner about sackbuts, and he was like, they were doing some project together, and it came up, and he was like really into the, tell me more about the sackbut, like really, really into it. So I'm hoping I get to meet Shatner someday. That's like a life goal of mine, and can explain and maybe even demonstrate a sackbut for him. I think he would be very into that.
There's some trombone on some Star Trek episodes, right?
There's a Spock solo.
He plays from the bridge, yeah. What?
Well, and that's yeah. Well, in a mock time, there's a big Dick Nash plays the solo when he realizes he's killed Kirk. That's Dick Nash playing the trombone solo on that. Yeah. Whoa. I asked him about it. He came into the shop one day, and I was like, "Hey, Dick, I have a question for you, nerdy question. Do you remember this episode where you play? Oh yeah, a little glissy thing on there, low bass trombone." He's like, yeah, it was on bass trombone. I'm not really comfortable on bass trombone, but I had to do bass trombone that day because the contractor was like, "You got one of those, right?" Yeah, sure. And
it's like one of the most like significant moments in his Star Trek.
Exactly. So it's Dick Nash, in case you were wondering.
That is awesome. Okay, well, we'll do a formal introduction, I guess, in the introduction to the episode, but. Of course, we're here with John Snell and Noah Gladstone, our friends from the Trombone Corner, and John, trumpet player. So that's the one with the you call it, they're like buttons.
Yeah,
the one that they're in your right ear and they're talking to you like that, and you got to push in your tuning slide to play with them. Is that one?
Yakka. Well, yeah. Well, and I'm going to use, since I'm outnumbered here, number one. And since the honor is so big that you have allowed me into the trombone retreat, I should mention, after playing soprano trombone for about 2 or 3 months, one, I realized how out of tune I played on the trumpet. And no matter how tuned in I was to the center of the note and all the things we were taught that, you can't just trust the valves being pushed down, when I actually had to trust my ear and use a slide where the center of the note actually was and where the intonation actually was, on behalf of trumpet players around the world, I apologize. You guys were right. We were going sharp through the gig. We were raising the pitch higher as we were getting tired, or, going in the upper register. But I could go on, and I've talked to Noah about this. The things I learned from using a slide, having to use your ear, and also having the bell, a foot and a half closer to you. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I'm humbled by the trombone. And I'll be a fly on the wall because Noah's much more interesting than I am.
No, you're a trumpet player. You're going to be telling us what to do by like half this episode, right? The type A will come out.
Well, sorry, I didn't know if I told you guys I have a Latin gig I have to get to, so I'll see you.
Are there a lot of Noah? Can you book him some soprano trombone gigs?
Well, I'm hoping. The Moravian choir, unfortunately, is no longer a thing here in LA. Jeff Reynolds had it for a long time. That was a big deal. So
they made a great record.
He directed that. They did, yeah. I mean, that's really kind of the only opportunity for soprano trombone, I think. It does come up on studio calls from time to time as like funny sound effects, and the trumpet players are like, "Oh, great! I get to pull out my soprano trombone and make noises." But as far as like actually playing music on the instrument, I rarely get to hear that. So I'm looking forward to hearing John as he hones his craft.
Alto trombone's hard enough. Those positions must be so close together.
It is very, very small. I
don't know if I've ever encountered,
but it gives me an excuse.
I don't know if I've ever encountered like a fully proficient soprano trombonist.
Jim Nova's okay at it.
Malcolm McNabb actually is very good.
I stand correct. I heard that. I have not heard him play it though. I've heard he actually he played on the Moravian trombone.
He played on the Moravian trombone.
Heard
that's where he learned.
Okay.
Yeah. He was really, really terrific. And Ray Burkhart, rest in peace. But he was also very, very good on the soprano trombone.
Wow.
But there's not a lot of calls for it, and there's that weird Mozart mass that's got like the fake soprano trombone part. It's not real. It's like, I think it was like Calamus or something added a soprano trombone part, and it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Hey, we don't cuss on this podcast, so saying Calamus is
that's a 4-letter word.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, and there's stories that Chuck Finley and Gary Grant, the Seawind horns, would use soprano trombones or slide trumpets for some of the licks they would do back in the day. And there's a story that Chuck Finley used a Colicchio soprano trombone for one of the award shows. He just showed up with it, and the contractor said, "You can't use that," and he said, "I'm using it anyway," and still played the heck out of the show, just because. But that's it. Yeah, it's a little different than playing in a Moravian group.
So tell me how you guys first became friends. Like, how did you first start working together?
Right, John, go ahead.
Buddy Noah. Oh, I love this story. So we had a friend in common, again, Uncle Matty, rest in peace, dear friend of ours that passed. We went to Cal State Northridge together, and he kept talking about this Buddy Noah. My buddy.
I went to high school. I went to high school with Uncle Matty, and he wanted to be called Uncle Matty. By the way, that's like how he introduced himself. So.
Yeah. And he's like, growing up, there was that friend that had everything, where you're playing a video game. Oh, my friend's got that, he's got the Xbox, or my friend's got this mouthpiece, or my friend's got this horn. It's my buddy Noah. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, you think this guy doesn't actually exist. Right. And then sure enough, I think it was like a holiday or party or something. It was at your house, Noah. I remember we got invited and we came over and Uncle Matty introduced us. Hey, John, this is my buddy Noah. And I think you said, "Hi, Noah." And he's like, "I've got a mouthpiece for you." I think that was like the first thing out of your mouth. And he took me to the back room at his house, and he started pulling out these like cases, like those old vintage Bach cases, mouthpiece cases. He had like a dozen of them, and you're like going through them like a mad scientist. And then you pulled out, he's like, "This is the best piccolo mouthpiece I've ever, everyone wants this. You need this mouthpiece." I was like, I didn't even know I needed a piccolo mouthpiece. And I think, you said, okay, this is the price. I'll give you a good deal on it. And by God, I still use that piccolo mouthpiece. It was the best mouthpiece I ever played. And that was it. It was love at first sight.
Aw.
I get around, I guess. My reputation precedes me. I've been collecting, obviously, because I'm a crazy person since I was a little kid. So, I had boxes of New York trumpet and trombone mouthpieces in high school just because I was nuts. And eBay was a brand new thing. And I was an early person on eBay just getting all of this gear, instruments and mouthpieces. And mouthpieces were the first thing that I started collecting because it was obviously they were less expensive than instruments. So that was the gateway into the other things.
Was the idea to be flipping them and selling them, or did you just enjoy
enjoyed the craftsmanship of them? And my teacher was Byron Peebles, who I love dearly. He was like a second father to me, and he was a big gearhead too. So I would go over to his house for lessons, and he would have 30 trombones out on stands, Mount Vernon's, Elkhart cons, and mouthpieces everywhere. And this mouthpiece Reynold Schilke made for me when I was in Chicago Symphony, and this, that, and the other. And as a 12-year-old coming in to see that, you're like, oh my God, this is like the coolest stuff. And I wrote him one day and I said, or I phoned him up and I said, I found this Mount Vernon 42 on Trombone Classified page. What do you think? Oh, you got to get it. My mom was like, you can't get it. And Byron called her and said, you got to get him this trombone. So that was kind of how it started. We would spend lessons, measuring mouthpieces and try this gear, and, kind of connected there like that. And I got the bug really early and started collecting instruments and mouthpieces and learning about the makers and the craftsmanship and the different things that made the instruments work together. Byron was really good friends with George Strussel and Larry Minnick. So he had all this Minnick stuff, and to just, see all of these creations and custom trombones from this guy, Larry Minnick, who I didn't know who he was, except that everyone talked about him with such respect. And he had just passed at that time. It was really, really cool to see all these custom bass trombones and custom bells and stuff that you would never get exposed to as a young child, anywhere else other than being in Los Angeles, where it all is. It was pretty cool. So I got into that really early, and then John came over and we hit it off. And then when John started working for Bob Reeves, obviously I was having my mouthpiece stuff done, and I wanted to start my own mouthpiece line. And I did a run of 50 mouthpieces on my own. I found a machinist from JPL that was making Mars rover parts, and he was like, yeah, I can make a mouthpiece for you. So like I had him make a mouthpiece, and I did 50, and I put them up on the website, and they all sold within a day. Pretty crazy. It was like, oh, okay, well, there's something here for this. It was a copy of one of my really great Mount Vernons, and I did like a outer shape that looked like a Delosa mouthpiece, which is a maker from Philadelphia. Very cool. So I approached John. I said, hey, this is really hard to have this guy make them, and then someone's got to finish the mouthpieces and buff them and stamp them and plate them and do all that stuff. That's all in-house at Reeves. So I said, hey, what about a collaboration where we could do, you guys need trombone mouthpieces because you're only doing trumpet mouthpieces, and this is a good win-win for everybody. And we can really spend some time and hone in on the line and, hand make these. It was really important that they're all handmade for me, and, done the old style. So that's kind of how we became business partners, and then doing the podcast and all the things. And he lives down the street from me. So we hang out a lot. So it's nice.
Oh man. There's nothing like, as cheesy as it sounds, but there's nothing like working with your friends.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best.
Wouldn't
I'll
trade
let
it
you
for
know when
anything.
I finally get to do that.
Oh,
Wow. You beat me to that because you knew
exactly.
I was about to say the same thing. Get ahead of it. That's really awesome. And you're in such a unique location where there's so much happening and so many different types of players. So I'm sure you have to cater to so many different types of musicians. And I was reading a lot on your website, and there's a really cool video on the Bob Reeves website about, how everything started. And Bob Reeves sounds like a really awesome person. And you love when you see people that just we're running businesses, sure. Yeah, we're trying to be profitable, we're trying to make money, but it's really refreshing seeing people that, especially craftsmen, that they, if no one was buying them, they'd still be in their warehouse building stuff because they just love the art of it, the engineer brain. So how did you first start working for Bob, John?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a interesting story because I was in school at the time and I was actually doing computers and web design and stuff for a online casino. It was kind of in a legal gray area, but it paid really well. Very interesting job. But I was on my lunch breaks trying to, thinking about what I was going to do with my life because that paid well, but it wasn't very fulfilling. And Bob's manager at the time called me literally on my lunch break as I was pondering the world and asked if I wanted to come in for an interview. And honestly, I'd never heard of Bob Reeves. My dad was a trumpet player, and between him and my trumpet teachers, they said, you play on this and you practice, and, didn't even know the shop was here. And, but I was like, hey, at least it's somewhere around trumpet and music and stuff. And they said they would be flexible with knowing someone's going to be a performer and might have to take time off for tours or gigs. And that was in 2001. And now it's been, 22 years, almost 23 years. And I'm a co-owner of the business now. Bob left the business to myself and Brett, who does runs the shop part of the shop. And it's been an amazing run.
And did it start primarily as trumpet mouthpieces?
Yeah. So Bob, this shop started in 1968 and Bob was a trumpet player. And although he did custom work for all the brasses, but he knew the trumpet, he could hear the trumpet, and
he was building trumpets at Benge as well. So,
yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And I asked him years ago why he didn't make horn mouthpieces and trombone mouthpieces and whatnot. And he said, well, I can't hear the sound. I don't know the sound of the trombone. He could appreciate it, but he knows the sound of the trumpet, or knew the sound of the trumpet intimately, which is why the, collaboration with Noah is perfect because, we know how to build things, but Noah knows the sound of the trombone and he knows how to solve the problems of trombone players. And since we've been doing the mouthpieces, we hired Robert Coomber from, bass trombonist out here, so someone could speak the language. And then we just hired another trombonist, Spencer, great tenor trombone player again, so we can speak the common language now. Because when it comes down to it, I'm just a dumb trumpet player. So even though I know the models, I can't speak the same language.
If you had to describe, and you have so many diverse mouthpieces and different types and custom things, but if you had to describe the identity of what you're going for, or what a Bob Reeves mouthpiece kind of has, how would you do it?
Noah, do you want to,
sure,
for the trombone mouthpieces?
For the trombone mouthpieces, for sure. So, I'm a big lover of like a classic trombone sound. I listen to a lot of the old timers and, vintage gear. I love vintage gear, but there's a way to get like a lot of those colors and timbres in a modern mouthpiece that will hold up to like the rigors that we have to play. So, absolutely. When we design the mouthpieces, and I have so many in my archive of just great.
Understatement of the day.
I'm not going to tell you how many I have, but it's
ballpark
mouthpieces.
Yeah,
a lot, a significant number of mouthpieces,
like more than 500.
Maybe.
That means definitely.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. A lot. I have a very patient wife. She is very.
Do you store them at your house?
I have cases. I have cases that I have had made, and I have like the Bach case and like the Minute case and the other Bach case and the, Colicchio case and the weird case and the all historic case. It's nuts. And
they're semi-organized then.
It's crazy. Lately I'm into like German trombones, like antique German trombones, romantic trombones, because I just think they're fascinating. So I've been like collecting those mouthpieces now, trying to get into that stuff. Just there's so many fun trombone toys to get. Eventually, I guess I'll donate them all to the Smithsonian or something. I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
You should look at have you ever been to the MIM in Scottsdale?
Yeah, the MIM is pretty cool.
Amazing.
So
place.
there's opportunities that they would need to give me a whole wing. I think,
that's true.
At some point, it's kind of crazy, but the mouthpiece design, we were really trying to get this like classic stuff. So, for the bass trombone, we wanted to do like, I don't think anyone really made a really great 1.5 G. Like, a lot of people search for, Mount Vernon 1.5 Gs. There's so many variations. And I have this really great Burt Herrick 1.5 G that was made for George Roberts that I got from George. And it's really weird. Like he probably made it with a screwdriver. Who knows what he made it with? It's like really, really wonky. The cup is kind of wonky. It's like kind of step in there, but you put it in the horn and you're like, wow, it sounds like George Roberts. It really does. So I was like, let's make this because this is something that's really cool. You can't get it. It's one of a kind, and if you want that sound, you kind of need that piece. So that's our Mr. Bass trombone. So, people ask us for like 1.5 Gs. We don't necessarily do a 1.5 G in a box style, but it's something different, but it is around that size. So, that was really cool. And when we were doing the Martin Skipper's mouthpiece, he was playing on one of those and he was like, can we adjust the size of the rim, but use this cup because it's such a unique cup? And it's interesting because it's like, it sounds kind of tenorish when the middle upper register like George, but then when you're in the bottom, it's like super, super punchy and farty, which is great. So, but bold, and especially on a microphone, it really picks up. So that's a really cool piece. So like no one makes that. Let's bring that to market. And then, for our orchestra bass, we wanted to do something a little bit like a 1 1/4 size, and then I was talking to Charlie Vernon and he was like, I really like these really thin rims, the old school with a giant cup. And, but Charlie's mouthpiece is very, very tight in the backbore because he likes a lot of resistance because he plays such large equipment. So, we made a piece for Charlie, and it turned out that Bob had this cutter from Purviance that was like exactly this profile of Charlie's rim, and it worked out perfect. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And then we were doing Jay's mouthpiece. Jay had Reynolds Schilke make him this thing. I think it was called like a Gepford cup, which is like a V cup from the Gepford cutter that Schilke had from some mouthpiece from the 30s. And, it's a really, really unique shape. And it turns out that Bob also had a Purviance cutter that was like the same cup, V cup. So it was like we had all of these tools that Bob had from inherited or made over the years. We made some tools and we're able to really create a really unique line of mouthpieces that's not really like anything else. And they're not necessarily just straight up Bach copies. Like I didn't want to do that. We kind of took some Bach pieces that I like, the 4G, the 5G. I have really good Mount Vernon examples and tweaked them a bit. The rims I picked those rims because they're comfortable, but they're kind of old school. They have a nice bite to them, but they're still comfortable. So, it's my aesthetic in a sense, in consultation with John and Brett. Brett is terrific. He's their machinist and he really, understands how to make mouthpieces. We did a pandemic project where we made a solid sterling silver trombone mouthpiece.
Whoa.
Which is crazy. Like we melted silver and then made a piece because Al Almont was a guy.
Big Al
was a mouthpiece maker that made mouthpieces for Tommy Dorsey's band, and he made sterling silver mouthpieces. Wow. So we're like, oh, let's make one of ours just to see for fun. So
how did that sound?
It's great. I use it every day. It's my mouthpiece. Really? It's great. It's interesting. The sterling is like 25% denser than brass. So you can make a lightweight mouthpiece that still has weight to it, but it responds like a lightweight mouthpiece. So really fascinating project. It's been fun. It's been a great collaboration.
I don't know how if I have, like, I get upset if I go to a restaurant and the menu's too big. Like I can't make a decision. If I have too many options customized for my trombone, it breaks my brain. And I don't know how you walk out the door and make an equipment decision based on like what gig you're doing that day with
me personally,
700 mouthpieces. Yeah.
It's funny. Like it's kind of like my mood. I'll be like in the mood for like vintage cons. So like last week I was playing my 1916 Con Symphony on a concert just because I was like, this horn's great. I'm going to play it this week. And then the other day I was in a section of Bach, so I was like, okay, I'll take my 42 today. And it keeps it interesting. It keeps it exciting. We just did a Dvorak 7 a couple weeks ago, and I gave everyone in the section a German trombone. So I was like, let's do full German romantic trombones for this. And amazing. So I gave everyone a 110-year-old trombone, and we had a little sectional and worked it out. And for them, it was really exciting because like you've played Dvorak 7 a bunch, but then to add the challenge of having the instrument makes it a lot more interesting on the job. And people appreciate it too. Like the conductor was like, wow, I've never heard this sound. And it is definitely a drastically different sound. And it's funny. It's like, I don't know that I could actually play Dvorak 7 again on a modern trombone. I would be missing kind of the nuance of a German instrument. Cause for those, they're like really big sack butts. They're, big bells, big bore, but the bells are so thin. They're so responsive. And the color, I mean, Nick, you know how it is. You have some German trombones.
I have
the colors that you can get on a German instrument is just drastically different than what the American instruments are made to be very, very uniform sound, and the German instruments are made to be very colorful sounds. So,
I think at some point I'm going to try to steal that Leuchter Confuchs.
Oh yeah. Well, exactly. Like that's another project where I was like, nobody makes this instrument, and for me, it was fun to be able to bring a modern idea on a 110-year-old trombone that makes this classic sound, because like it just you can't get that anywhere else, and there are people out there that appreciate those kinds of things, and these are the things that I look for when I'm kind of bored and looking on the internet for trombone stuff. Who makes a really cool thing? So I'm like, well, why don't we make a really cool thing?
Noah, I have an idea. Nick knows I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So you and I were going to fly to Germany.
Yeah.
We're gonna get some people to videotape us. Nick, you can hold the camera. You can come. You can hold the camera. Because there's the cool thing about Germany. There's so many small makers.
So many small makers.
You and I are both fans of Marcus Leuchter, and that's how one of the first times I talked to you is when I ordered my Marcus Leuchter Alto, which I think it's like serial number 4, and I'm in love with it. And everyone that I let try it is like, that is the best alto trombone I've ever played. And I've always thought it would be really cool. It'd be for a very niche audience, but we go to Germany, we visit these makers, we hang out with a local trombonist in town, we try out trombones, we talk about them. We talk with the craftsmen, and then we go to the local brewery and drink beer and talk with the trombonist about life there, and make like a mini YouTube series. That'd be so fun.
I would love to do it. I've been talking with Thomas Schivkovitz too, my dear friend from Austria, who also has his own podcast, so he could translate for us. We've been talking about it for years to do this. In fact, he actually, when I went to visit Marcus, when we were working on the Baby Fuchs project, Marcus was like, I have a prototype. I'm not going to send it to you. You need to fly to Germany and come to my shop, and we need to drink beers together, and you need to finish this trombone with me. And that was part of like
I love that.
Part of like he's like, this is how I do business. And if that's okay with you, I'll build this trombone for you. So I went over to Germany, and Tom came and met me there, and we spent a weekend at Marcus's shop, and his shop is fun because it's literally like next to his house. So he's got his house, and then he's got this like little tiny shop, and it's tiny, but he makes everything there. He's got just enough space for his lathe, and then downstairs he's got his draw bench, and then like he's got his buffing room off to the side, and he's doing all these, every piece is made with love and handwork from Marcus. Like even the screws, he's making the screws on.
No way, really?
So yeah. Every piece, every brace, every lever, every brackets, every ferrule, he does, and that's why it takes so long to get an instrument.
Yeah, that's my next question. Where's my Leuchter contrabass trombone?
It's he's working on the contras right now.
I saw that picture. I got really excited.
Yeah.
I was hoping I'm one of them. I hope.
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
It's very, very cool to have an instrument from him.
Yeah.
You can feel the love, and so I would love to. I mean,
he does it all himself.
He does everything himself.
He doesn't have any. He doesn't have any help.
He does it all himself.
Wow.
Yeah, he gets the bells. The bells he gets from Bernd Sandner, because Bernd is like an excellent bell maker, and Marcus is like, I could do the bells, but Bernd is better than I am, so I just order the bells. But he does his like yearly trip to see Bernd, and they have beers for a week, and like that's part of the way that people do business. I think a lot of these instrument makers do business is like you have to have a personal relationship, because they need to know that they can trust you and that you're friends, and like real friends, and have that bond of doing business face to face. And Marcus and I, we talk on Skype, once every couple months about how's things going in the shop. He's given me updates and things like that, and we talk about design ideas. So it was a really cool project to do the Fuchs. And I think the instrument definitely benefited from all of that. I could have just said, hey, make this and make this, and he could have done it. But like to have that actual attention from both of us and the love and passion from both of us to make it, I think really helped elevate the instrument.
You have a pretty long waiting list for it now.
Yeah, we did 7, including the prototype. The prototype lives at Marcus's shop. And then I have one here that you tried, Nick. That's number 2.
Okay.
And then we sold, I think there were 7 total in the first batch. And then he wasn't going to make any more after that. We were like, okay, this is because it's a lot of work. Each one of those tubes on that baby Fuchs is seamed and hand roll. I mean, everything, including the slide tubes. It's nuts, the amount of time that goes into that. So he wasn't really going to do any more, but there was so much demand and people really like him. So I think he's going to do one more batch. We'll see.
Wow.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Just charge like 40,000 for him. Yeah.
Nick, can I sign you up for 40,000?
You want it.
Sold.
Yeah.
So if you had to name a favorite, I guess, piece in the shop, what would it be?
Well, I know John's. Go ahead, John.
Favorite
Any piece. It could be anything.
Instrument.
It could be anything. How about instrument?
Okay.
Instrument might be better.
Well, because it's the trombone retreat, then I have to say my Minnick soprano.
Oh,
What's a Minnick
That's pretty cool.
soprano?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was going to say my King Liberty mini trumpet, but no one would appreciate that in this.
I know what that instrument
in
is.
this realm.
I've seen.
I think some trumpet players might listen to us.
Yeah. Let's see. My favorite instrument. I mean, I have so many, so it's hard to like pick one. But I think my crown jewel. I have the contrabass that was Roger Bobo's contra,
wow.
and then Murray Crew had it. It's from 1902, and it's just a stunning instrument. It's the best B flat contra ever, I think. And it's so lightweight and it's really, really, really cool. So I think that's probably one of my favorite instruments that I have. It's really a fun instrument, and there's so many cool pictures of Bobo and Jeff Reynolds and all these famous people playing it. George Roberts played it on Jaws. So
No kidding.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a pretty cool instrument with a lot of history. Abe Turchinsky had it, and then it just passed around, and Bill Reichenbach owned it for a while. Murray, of course, there's the famous video on YouTube of him playing the Bartok. So I'm really, really fortunate that I am the caretaker for that instrument right now. And then some of the other ones that I really, really like, I'm having a trombone restored right now in Switzerland by Aaron Vajna. It's from 1671. It's an original sackbut.
Holy hell.
That I was able to pick up last year from a private collector in Geneva. And I'm really excited to get that instrument because it's made by a maker named Jakob Schmidt, who actually lived a long time. He lived almost 90 years, and he had 2 sons that also made trumpets and trombones. He was in Nuremberg, so this was made 1671, which is pretty cool because I think it's 12 or 13 years before Johann Sebastian Bach was born, which is crazy. And the instrument is surprisingly in excellent shape. There's no cracks in it, and the important bits are intact. The bell is there, the slide brace, the bell brace is there, and the neck pipe is there. So Aaron's making me a new bow for the back. There's no tuning slide, obviously, and then he's making a new slide. It's missing the slide, but he said he'd got it mocked up. He wrote me a message a couple days ago and said that he had a sackbutist in that said it's the finest trombone he's ever played.
Oh,
so
crap.
I'm really excited to get this, and I'm planning on using it. He's going to make
God.
it so that it's modern pitched, and that's going to be really fun to have a 352-year-old playable trombone to show around.
Wow.
Would you say, Noah, that you're into gear at all?
I have a gear problem for sure. For sure.
I almost want to interview your wife now because I just can't imagine. I found this new thing I bid on in Switzerland.
Oh, she, yeah. I mean, so Doug Yo wrote me because I was playing a serpent job a couple of months ago, and I was like, "Oh, I'd really like to get a Baudouin serpent." And he said, "Oh, well, I'll sell you mine. I'm retiring." So then I was like, "Oh, honey, I need to buy Doug's serpent from 1810." Because when am I going to get an opportunity to do that again? So, now I have that. That's a lovely instrument. And that was made when Napoleon was the emperor of France. So it's pretty cool just to have these things. And when you're playing them, they're worn in like perfectly, especially on the serpent. Like the finger holes are just like, you can feel they're worn in from all of the players that have played it.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. Apparently this serpent may have been owned by Charles Sachs, who's of course Adolphe Sachs's father, who made serpents and ophicleides around that time. This one may have been on his wall as his model. So, which is why it's in good shape and not rotted out. So
we should make like a movie like the Red Violin,
the black serpent,
the serpent, Doug Yo's serpent. Yeah, the black serpent
passed on through generations.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. That's like that kind of stuff makes it interesting when you're playing stuff.
I mean, I can tell you love it. I mean, it's really just wonderful to hear about. And you need a museum. I mean, is there a way for people that visit you to just see all the things you have, or is it kind of just more of a private?
Well, I on the website on the Brass Ark, I have a museum page, and I kind of try to update that. Although I am pretty bad about updating it lately, but I have a lot of these instruments there, and like a little write up about each one, some of the history on it, some pictures. I need to do an update. And then on Instagram for a while, I was doing like, I'll post a picture, once a week of an instrument from the collection and kind of tell some history and show some of the neat features of it and, some of the innovative designs, things like that. But, I don't know. I mean, if someone really wanted to see something and they made an appointment, I would bring it in to show them. People have wanted to see the Contra before, and I've taken that into the shop. So,
I mean, you have an appreciation for history and the way sound has evolved over time. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on, even in the last 20 years, how much trombones have changed. And, we had that trend in the early, 2000s, late 90s, where we couldn't get big enough,
right?
And couldn't get dark enough.
Right.
And these tenor trombones are basically bass trombones from back then, like keeping that tenor voice and that purity of sound. I feel like some people really appreciate that. And I love that so much. And of course, with my mouthpiece I'm developing, that's what I'm going for too, that classic sign with a modernized feel. But like, what are your thoughts on how the voice of trombone has changed? And would you like it to go back to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, for me, getting to do a lot of this period performance stuff and getting to experience some of these pieces as they were as close to originally intended as, in the ear of the composer by playing the correct instrument or period accurate instrument, definitely kind of gives you some food for thought, when you approach kind of the modern trombone. First things first, obviously these older trombones, they just don't play as loud as a modern trombone. And that's okay because the sound still gets out there. So I think, some of us are trying to fool ourselves, I think. And there was that trend to go, huge equipment and really, really dark and really dull. And that's not really what a trombone is supposed to sound like, at least for me, in my opinion, and my kind of sound concepts. It really is this kind of sparkly clarity, foundation for the orchestra to sit on. And, and it's fun when you're playing these period instruments and you play a chorale or something like that, or you just ring a chord out and the viola section turns around and looks at you and smiles. And you're like, oh, they're not scowling at me. How about that? That's kind of a nice validation, I think, of approaching things and maybe a different mindset as opposed to being the trombone jock. Now, there are certainly times when you have to be a trombone jock, especially in the studio world, where they want it as loud and disgusting as possible because that's kind of they're using it more of a sound design thing. But in an orchestral setting, I think there is some validity to kind of making things a little bit brighter, making things clear and a good foundation in a pure sound rather than any kind of fuzz sound. And that's hard to get to because a lot of the noise in our heads that we're hearing back, you have mouthpiece noise, you have articulation noise, you're hearing the sound coming back at you and the bell is in front of you. definitely kind of changes your concept of what you actually sound like. You might think you're sounding amazing, and then you listen to a recording, you're like, oh, I didn't know I was sounding like that at all. So I think it's really important for people to get friends to listen to themselves and, reassess the equipment, because what the sound that you think you're making is not necessarily always the case.
Absolutely.
But you could just always think you sound great and never get the feedback, and then
There
you
it
can
is.
just feel good about
Well, there's
yourself
that too. There's that too. So, I mean, there's two schools, I guess. So, when I'm picking instruments, and again, like you were saying, which instrument do you pick? Sometimes it's like, well, I'd like to pick an old con because they kind of feel like a German trombone. And, a heavy red brass instrument, all red brass, and that makes a specific sound. And then there's other times, I'll have a studio session or a big band session I have to do, and it's like, oh, I'll pick an instrument that's kind of more tailored to that kind of sound concept. So it's a constant evolving process. I'm lucky that I have access to all of this gear, because I can kind of experiment and see all of these different colors, and what this does and what this does and what this mouthpiece does to this instrument and what this alloy does to this instrument, and which also informs me when I'm doing these trombone projects with various makers, and approaching kind of the design concepts, because I have it all and I can just reference my actual instrument. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is super fun.
Yeah. Living museum, living in a museum. It's cool.
There's so many directions you can go, and it's like having that. I don't know if I generalized trombone trends of, the heavier mouthpiece. My only guess was that if sometimes it feels good where a younger person or anyone that maybe their embouchure isn't as developed, or their endurance and facility on the horn isn't developed, and you put this big heavy mouthpiece in, oh, I can play really loud without my sound breaking up. Cool, fun. But then you lose articulation, you lose color, you like, especially in the softs. There's nothing like getting that sparkle and just like sighing through the trombone, and it just sparkles and projects to the back of the hall, and not this dull sound. And that's just so fun. I don't know. I wish more people would.
Well, I think some of it is chamber music too, because when you're in that setting, you have to listen, and you can't play necessarily overbalanced from anybody else. So, it opens your mind to like, oh, there's other things in the world than just raw meat through your nose trombone playing all the time.
I have a good question for you guys.
I'm going to use that line.
I feel like
sorry to interrupt, Sebastian. I'm going to use that.
Oh no, you're good. Well, something I've been talking about with people lately, I think in general, if you compare trumpet players to a trombone player, in general, trombone players want to play one mouthpiece all the time, especially on a gig. And you look over and trumpet players will have like a different mouthpiece per movement. And I think, sometimes we're afraid of the change of feel and everything. But do you think trombone players could do that more often? More tailored things to the pieces?
Actually, we just talked about this with Brett Baker. And it's funny because, there is a stigma. Like if you bring a bunch of mouthpieces and you're changing mouthpieces mid-gig, everyone's kind of looking at you like, oh, are you having chop issues, or like, what's going on over there? And there is definitely like some judgment about that. Like you have to just play the same mouthpiece. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. And, especially when I'm playing certain repertoire, I have various historic mouthpieces that I use depending on the rep that I'm using, flat rims, sharp throats, et cetera, to get a certain kind of articulation or color that's appropriate for the piece that I'm performing. So why not? I think if it makes the job easier and it makes the sound that you're after, what's wrong with changing mouthpieces mid-gig? Like John said, well, trumpet player, come back when you're changing mid-phrase. Like,
That was a good line.
Yeah, I like that one.
It's true.
It's true.
Well, and when it comes down to it, I mean, the mouthpiece is a tool, it's all a tool, the horn, the mouthpiece, the mute, whatever it is. And especially as modern playing gets more demanding, or the job gets more demanding, I mean, if you're showing up and playing, Haydn or Mozart, fine. Yeah, I'm sure one mouthpiece will do it. But, if you're playing at the Hollywood Bowl and you've got 5 or 6 different styles, yeah, if you can get it all done with one mouthpiece, great. But that's also like, getting out on the golf course with a putter. Like,
yeah, that is good.
Yeah, can I hit the ball 300 yards with a putter? Yeah, if enough time and enough practice. But why not use this tool that's designed to do this specific job? So
yeah, I think that also translates to, using alto trombone when alto trombone is appropriate, using a small tenor, using a smaller bass trombone. I even have like a modern F bass trombone, straight F bass trombone that I had for some repertoire. Where it's like, this is what they would have used originally, but I can't pull out my sack butt to do it, but I still want to play it on an F trombone, and with modern trombones in the section. And I think that was really fun. Again, it keeps it interesting, and it's like a little bit closer. I mean, an F trombone sounds different than a B flat bass trombone. So it's kind of fun. There's repertoire for that, and it's like, why not? Makes it interesting.
Noah, I'm still looking for the perfect alto trombone mouthpiece.
Okay.
For this horn, can you please help?
We'll send something your way. We'll talk. That's
a whole other
I will Sherpa you through your alto trombone mouthpiece journey.
Oh, please. Yes. I did want to ask a little. I mean, we kind of just follow where we're going.
Yeah,
and it was just so interesting to talk about. And Noah, you also has such a big contracting career, and I could you just briefly talk about how you got into all that, and basically what you do? A lot of trombonists know you from the Brass Ark, but I don't know if it's possible to briefly.
Sure, I'll kind of give a quick overview. So, I was at USC. I did my undergrad at USC out in Los Angeles with Terry Cravens. I had studied with Byron Peebles from the LA Phil and Ralph Sauer, so pretty good pedigree, and was like, okay, well, I want to play in orchestras, and I want to win an orchestra job and do all the things that you do when you're kind of on that mindset. And USC is in LA, and there's a big film scoring component to the school, and the film school there, they have a bunch of film composers. So one night randomly I was at a house party at USC and made kind of small talk with this guy lying next to me. Turns out he was in the film scoring program and needed some players for a small project he was doing for a student project. I can do that for you. So I've always been like a good connector of people through high school and college. I just knew a lot of people, was playing a lot of gigs and knew a lot of musicians in the community. And, people generally seemed to like me, which is nice. And I got 40 of my colleagues to come and do the session. And his roommate orchestrated the project and called me the next day and said, "Hey, I really like your contracting style. Would you be able to contract this movie for my friend who's doing a project with the actress from Buffy the Vampire Slayer?" Oh, okay, sure. It's going to be union, and can you budget all that stuff out and just handle all the bookings and everything? So I said, sure, I can do that. No problem. I know what to do. And I lied and didn't, but figured it out. Got some help from the union and kind of did my budget. And I booked a studio called O. Henry and an engineer named Bobby Fernandez, who was pretty famous. And we did this session. It was 2 days of doubles, and my budget came like right on the dollar. It was like right on the spot. So I was like, hey, I'm pretty good at this, called the breaks. And, everyone was like, hey, you did pretty good at this. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I should kind of do this on the side. Who knows? I'll kind of study the union rules and learn more about contracting and stuff. Because it's very complicated. There's a lot of gotchas. There's, dozens of contracts you have to memorize, and recording stuff is very, very complicated, especially the recording contracts are extremely 200 pages long with, lots of gotchas. So, jump forward, I'm playing in a brass quintet with a friend of mine named Greg Curtis, and he was engineering a lot of our projects at USC. And his father-in-law wanted to invest in him building a recording studio in LA. So he asked me if I wanted to project manage the project. So we built a scoring stage called the Bridge Recording in Glendale from the ground up. It was an empty warehouse. He purchased the building, and we built the whole project over 3 years. I project managed the whole thing, the design, in collaboration with the acousticians and the contractors that built it, and learned a lot about studio construction, mistakes and all. We made a lot of mistakes. We did a lot of good things at that studio and learned a lot about studio craft. As I was coming out of that project, he was like, do you want to stay on and be the studio manager, or do you want to continue to contract and play trombone? Because you can't do both. And I said, well, I can't just be a studio manager. So I'm going to kind of double down on my trombone playing. At this point, I was like, well, I don't know that I really want to sit in an orchestra job, I kind of like doing all of these different things. So I had been working at Horn Guys for years during this whole period as well, kind of on my off days and helping out Steve Ferguson build his business. So I said, well, why don't I start my own trombone shop on the side, and I'll try to make a go of playing freelance and being a contractor. And I kind of fell into it. I started getting some local orchestras to be personnel manager for, and my friends Mike Berry and Michael Patty from USC called me up and said, hey, we're starting this company called Cinesamples. Would you help us contract some sample libraries? Union. We want to do it union, which is very complicated. And there was lots of drama on all that. And I won't really go into that, but there was lots of drama, but we did it. And we did these amazing Cinebrass, which people still use to this day. It's kind of ubiquitous in film scoring mock-up world. And it was a big success. And they made a lot of money. And they said, hey, we'd like to invest in another business with you. What are you interested in? I said, well, I'd really like to do a music production company. So we started our company, Hollywood Scoring, in 2011. And I always tell people, fortune favors the bold. If you're scared of failing and not taking any risks, then you're never rewarded for anything. So I sold a bunch of trombones and we raised a lot of money, and we basically put in over $100,000 into the business. We made a big video. At the time, a lot of orchestras were going to Prague, or a lot of composers were going to Prague to record orchestras.
Mm-hmm.
It was really in. Prague was really in. They've been doing a lot of non-union stuff in Seattle. Prague was really, really big. So people were doing these early remote sessions to Prague. So I was like, let's make a video about recording in the United States, recording in LA with the best studio players in the world, blah, 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 rally around the flag. Let's make a video and send it out to all the 10,000 composers on your composing mailing list for Cinesamples. So we made this really polished video at Sony Scoring Stage. We spent all this money, and we sent out the video. And I woke up the next morning and I had 500 emails in my inbox. And the first one was from a company called Riot Games, which was doing League of Legends. And they said, we want to take a meeting with you. So we went down the next day and had a meeting, and they said, we have no music department. We're really looking to get into original composition, original scoring. Can you help us with this? And we became their in-house music department, and we still are to this day.
Beautiful.
So through that, and kind of getting skin in the game and, treating people well, I really wanted to be kind of an advocate, having sat on all sides of the glass as a studio owner, as a contractor, as a trombonist, as just a human being, approaching it and being an advocate for players, but also an advocate for management. And I think that's one of the things that has a lot of disconnect, and there's a lot of turmoil between musicians and management. And this is for a lot of live orchestras as well, where, there's just a general lack of communication and understanding of what each group does and what their interests are and, what their motivations are. And I think when I approached my contracting, I approached that from that aspect. I am first and foremost a trombone player, and I'm happy to sit and do a $50 church job still to this day, to keep myself grounded and to work with my colleagues and be seen, on par with my colleagues. And then I will absolutely get up and go to bat when someone's being treated wrong, and advocate for people to make the most money for their careers, to facilitate a lifestyle and commitment to the art and the craft as possible. So that's kind of how I got into it. We built our own scoring stage in 2018. I just expanded. So I have 2 large scoring rooms in Atwater Village in downtown LA. And, I put my money where my mouth is. I invest everything that we get in the business, if it's Brass Ark or Hollywood Scoring, and I put it all into the business to bring, some kind of stability and joy to people, and advocate for people any chance that I can.
Wow, fascinating. It's awesome.
I love it. You're doing all the things.
Someone's got to do it. I mean, musicians are notoriously bad for managing business. Like you said,
yes.
We're not taught how to do it. And I realized early on that I was good at this and can be a good leader for people, and lead by example, which is rare.
So much is like understanding your personal strengths and accepting, like, hey, I actually am pretty good at this. Why don't you apply it?
Right. And it would be a shame if I didn't, I think. So, and it's fine. And I'm really glad I can do it. It makes me very happy when I send out, a full payroll for all my colleagues and friends that deserve it have, spent their whole lives learning how to play an instrument. And it gives me really, really great pride to be able to facilitate, so that I know that they're able to send their kids to college or pay their mortgage or buy groceries that week or buy a new instrument, brings me great joy. So that's one of the motivations that keeps me working really, really hard.
I love that. And I loved how you talked about understanding both sides. It's so easy to what I call othering other people, just assuming everything they want is the opposite of what you want, and assuming that they don't have needs to, and that they're just out to get you, there's so much mutual ground. But I think that's a good transition to it. We always kind of have a rapid fire questions to close out. And something I wanted to ask both of you, what's the most fun part of your job? If you had to pick one thing, the most fun part of your job and the most challenging part of the work you do. Ooh. John, how about you first?
Most fun, most challenging. I think for us, most fun is the travel. As much as I love the shop, like getting out on the road, getting in front of people. I mean, we used to do, when I first started here, we do 1 or 2 conventions a year, and now we do Japan every year. We probably do 4 or 5 conventions, in-store events, and although we're great at consulting over email or over phone, when you're in front of, a person and they're trying mouthpieces, or you're hanging out at the pub or whatever, it's those kind of connections that at the end of the day, it's just the most fulfilling. The hardest part, man, I don't know. It's probably dealing with the
That's
IRS,
good.
Right?
You just don't answer their emails.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah. I think it's anything about running a business. I think you guys talked about, setting up your trombone retreat. It's just running around, maybe not even having the confidence to think that you have the skill set, so you self-sabotage, you go through all of those negative thoughts that, don't do anyone good. So it's just having that perseverance to know, hey, I'm in the arena, I can learn, and, fake it till you make it. So that's probably the most difficult part.
That's good. How about you, Noah?
Well, I think the most fun, I get to travel around and do lots of things. So that's lots of fun, and produce events and get to be really creative, outside of like presenting a show. That's really fun. But for me, like the most joy I get actually is, when you're on the job and you're making music live and it's happening, and you get to hear a colleague play a really great solo, or, just something really great. And you get to look across and like, I'm part of this. Like, to me, that's really, really fun. Like just that communication and dialogue between your colleagues, and then the hang afterwards, and you get to congratulate people. Hey, you did a really great job. The least fun, I think, is from being a personnel manager. There's always like conflicts that come up, and dealing with issues with people that maybe aren't getting along so well, or there's an issue when you have players that are maybe not necessarily cutting or pulling their weight, and you have to address those things. And that's always really uncomfortable and sad, because like I said, you if you're an empathetic person and you understand why we all got into music in the first place, to have to deal with those kinds of things is really awful. And it does come up as a personnel manager. So those are the things that I don't look forward to. And they're really, really hard and difficult conversations to have sometimes. But it is part of the job. You letting someone go, firing someone from a job, or, if it's a freelance job, when they're like, hey, how come you didn't call me back for that? That's always an awkward conversation. And there's, all I usually tell people, which is the truth, is, sometimes there are things that happening behind the scenes that maybe it's not your playing, or maybe it's not, has nothing to do with you. It's just the way that the job is working out. But obviously, like, it's my name on it. So like, you kind of have an awkward situation with people that, maybe friendships are sometimes damaged from that. So I'd like to hope not. But that is the not fun part of being a personnel manager.
It's like literally in the title.
It really is. And it's, we've all had to deal with it, and we all have, know those kinds of situations, and it's just really a tough one.
What would you say the best advice you would give to a young player that is just starting out, and how they communicate with a personnel manager?
Good question. being overly pushy is not great, but you do want to be recognized. But I always tell people the best recommendations I get are from your colleagues. So, you have to it's always an audition. Every job is an audition in that sense. Like, your playing is half of it, but your communication and your personal skill set and your social skill set is nearly as important, if not more important, than how well you play. A lot of this stuff, is not necessarily the most difficult things possible. And I do, as a player, like to pick people for certain jobs that I know that they're going to excel at, because I know they're playing and I know they're going to do a good job. I would never try to put someone in a situation that I know they're going to not do well. And I think that's one of the nice things about having a contractor that also is a player is you tend to be able to protect people better. But work ethic comes down to it, I think, a lot, and just knowing how to behave in a professional setting and doing your best work, that the cream always rises to the top. People will pass along your name. And I always, someone will say, hey, here's my resume. I'm new in town. Okay, send me some examples of your playing. Great. I usually won't call them right away until someone mentions their name. Oh, hey, I played a gig with so-and-so, and they were, oh, how was that? It was great. Great, you're on the list. That's kind of how it works. And that's the best way to have it kind of happen organically, rather than, you shouldn't wait around for the phone to call, but starting your own ensembles, getting out there, kind of taking control of your own destiny in a sense of like working on yourself and your own artistry will ultimately get you recognized faster than just sending a resume and say, hey, I'm available for work.
I got great advice once about thinking, you always think about, well, what does this gig pay, or, how many hours is it, things like that. But like switching it around and thinking about like, what value can I provide? If you're auditioning for an orchestra, what value am I bringing to the orchestra? What skill set? What am I providing to the, to the section? Or if it's a professor position, what value am I bringing to the school, to my students? Or if it's just a freelance gig, and then it combines all of those elements, and it's because it's not just the playing skills, but, are you arranging? Can you provide charts? Are you a good person? Are you a fun hang? That's all value that you're bringing to the performance. And instead of, it is important to know what you're getting paid, and what you're getting in return. But, I feel like the more you give, then the more that's going to come back. If you don't even have to think about that part, because if you're providing that much value, stuff will come your way.
Absolutely. That's beautiful advice. And that's the same for any type of human relationship in this world. Giving more, not expecting things to just be given to you. That's a beautiful thing. John, advice to your 18-year-old self.
I think it comes to mindset. I was always introverted. I was always, nervous to jump into the ring, and I'm very fortunate that I am where I am now, despite all of that. But thinking about what I could have done had I not had self-doubt, had I not had, that voice in my head that said, no, maybe you shouldn't apply there, or maybe you shouldn't call this person and ask for a lesson, and one of my biggest regrets, at least in the trumpet world, Yuan Racy, one of the nicest human beings in the world, amazing studio trumpet player. And he lived literally down the street from me. And at any point I could have called him and taken a lesson, but I didn't even have, the wherewithal to do that, because I would talk myself out of it before I'd even pick up the phone. And then he passes away, and now I have no chance to, have a lesson. And there's countless stories of trumpet players that took a lesson from him and changed their playing, changed their life, changed their career trajectory, things like that. So if I go back to my 18-year-old self, I'd, kick myself in the seat and say, look, just do it. Who cares?
No.
I think I would give myself advice to travel more. I travel a lot now as an elderly person, but
I got your cane.
Exactly. I think, I would have, if I could do it again, I would go and travel and meet more musicians and get around a little bit more outside of Los Angeles. It was great to grow up here and go to school here. But I think I missed out on, doing festivals and traveling around the world because I was so focused on working in town and I think I missed out on a lot of that stuff. I think you meet a lot of people, you meet a lot of great music together, and see the world as a younger person. I think that gives you some perspective. Certainly now that I get to travel for work, I try to do all of those things now and kind of take in the culture. I definitely, you don't really realize that it's affecting your musicianship, but I think a lot of that does actually affect your musicianship, having perspective of how big and special the world is. Kind of bringing those experiences to your own art is important.
Absolutely. I have a spare bedroom.
I got to come.
So you're welcome to come visit.
When we got to do our YouTube trip around Germany,
I'm not joking, because I need to go there soon. Right. So that makes me think about my other. They're filming so many things in Pittsburgh now, so many movies, because it's like, it's a lot cheaper here, I think, and they get a lot of tax breaks, and it looks very iconic. You need to come visit and get scoring and more live recordings happening here. That'd be awesome.
Again, high tide raises all ships, right? So, as far as the scoring world goes, like, it's really interesting to see a lot of, back then there wasn't a lot of places to do it, and it's kind of, just kind of expanded around the globe. It's a global marketplace. You have, Budapest and Prague and Iceland and Nashville and Seattle and LA and New York and all these places. It's interesting. It's very expensive to do scoring the right way, but you need to find people that know how to do the workflow. That's really what it comes down to, and setting up the shop the correct way. And that's a lot of it. And part of that is one of the reasons why LA is so good, is the infrastructure here. And I have to give a shout out to my own crew at my studio, but all the crews around in all the studios. They've been doing, working in that filming environment for some of them 40, 50 years. And that's really where the experience comes in on the scoring stage. And you can see in that setup and stuff, and the, engineering side of it, that's really, really important. That's one of the areas that I think a lot of the scoring places around the world suffer, because they don't, not all of them, some of them have good people, but some of them don't really know the workflow, and that ends up slowing down and diminishing the product. So if there's anyone in Pittsburgh that has some scoring experience, you could certainly get that going as well.
Oh man, that'd be fun. Quick one. There's a billboard that the entire world can see, and you can write anything you want on it. What would it say?
This is a PG podcast right now.
No, it's definitely not PG.
Gosh, that's a weird question, John. What do you got?
Whoa. Practice?
I think I would just put a giant picture of the contrabass, in all its epic glory, and just be like, and everyone will drive by and be like, what the hell is that?
Put brassark.com
exactly
at the bottom.
Yeah, nothing else. Just the contrabass. It's so epic. It deserves its own billboard.
Well, it's great. I have an idea for your birthday now, Noah. Thank you.
Oh, good.
For the person who has everything, the most difficult person to shop for. Can you send me a picture of that trombone? Because I have to talk to my ad agency.
Nick, do you want to do your last question?
With this particular group of people, I think that the question about advice to your 18-year-old self covers the same premise. So I think that we'd be double covered if I asked it again. So
cool.
Well, I'm going to ask you guys a question, because we didn't ask you on our podcast about the gear that you play, and since we've talked about a lot of the gear that I've played, I'm going to flip this back on you guys and tell us about the trombones that you own and you play.
I've been an Edwards artist for a very long time, and so I already talked about my Marcus Lichter Alto, which I love very much, and I thank you so much for bringing the ease to get that in America. I think he's doing brilliant things. I have a King 2B from, I think it's like a 1969 King 2B that I love. One thing I kind of actually wanted to talk to you about, I have I think early 70s Bach 36. It's not Mount Vernon, but it's, they're all handmade.
Yeah.
I went and tried like 15 of them, and I picked this one up, and everyone was instantly, and I think we've lost the art of the medium bore horn. And I think it serves such a function, like playing a medium bore, like a straight horn, especially with piano, and all of our solo repertoire is so much more fun to play. so much easier. You get so much color. You don't have to worry about projecting. But I mean, they can
They can be
and
plenty loud.
playing in a it's just a different cone of projection, and it's playing in a British style brass band. It really blends well and cuts well with trumpet players. So I love that horn. I'm like looking at all my instruments now. It's like nothing compared to what Noah has. Yeah, that's why I've been playing, and I have, found some old trumpets at garage sales that I need to donate or something.
Donate them to Noah.
And I have a theremin.
Oh God, no! I don't deal with trumpet players.
I have a theremin for some reason.
All right.
And I have, I think that covers most things. Nick
I do have a lot of fun toys. My main instrument is a M&W bass trombone. Do you want to know all the details, or?
I want all the details, man.
I want to know.
Give me the specs.
It's
tuning in slide or any of that stuff that you guys talk about. Different valves and rotors.
It's not tuning and slide. It's got a it's got a red brass bell. I have a uncut one and I have a cut one. I mainly use the cut one, and I have
yours is cut, right, Noah?
Mine what?
Is yours cut? Mine's
cut. Oh yeah, mine's cut. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, that took a second to process. Thanks.
I got there right away.
Yeah, me too.
You guys have to be on your toes. You let a trumpet player in here. You guys have to stay on your toes. That's what we're for.
God.
We can't play in tune, but we can keep you guys honest.
I have a really unique instrument. It's a Rath trombone with Greenhoe valves. He only made one he made a couple of them in tenor trombone, but he only made one. This was supposed to be a prototype. And then Gary Greenhoe found out what he was doing with them, because he bought the valve sections from Gary and then just threw everything away and kept the valve and made his own wrap. And Gary really didn't like that. But I have that horn. That's a great horn. That's what I won my audition at the ballet with. I have my Marcus Leuchter that I bought from you. It's actually in the shop right now. I'm supposed to get it just for like cleaning. I'm supposed to get it back like tomorrow. What else do I have? I have a Chinese sack butt, a Wessex. I have a Salvation Army G bass trombone, and I have.
Have you used the G bass trombone on any jobs?
Never. That was an impulse buy. And I have Canstel contrabass trombone, and I have a Wessex C Ophiclyde.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's actually a very good instrument, especially for the price. I was very surprised by it.
Ophiclydes get a bad reputation, but they're actually quite lovely.
Well, the way I play it, it deserves its reputation.
Well, the fingering system doesn't make any sense at all.
When you try to describe it to someone, it's random memorization,
It's random memorization. Which is why it was popular with a lot of amateurs. But
like a bassoon.
But it is cool. I mean, there are some amazing players out there that play the
Patrick Vibert, whatever his name is in France.
Patrick is he's incredible.
Great serpent player too.
He's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he must get all the girls.
Unbelievable.
Is that my whole collection? That might be my whole collection.
No euphoniums, no tubas.
the euphonium. The euphonium is like doing a really cool party trick. It's like really, it's like, oh, that's fun and interesting. But it's like, come on, it's euphonium. Sorry, I have a deep hate of the euphonium. But
I could just see our subscribers going down and down.
Oh, well, if they've ever
all those euphonium players,
it's kind of our inside joke on the podcast. Anytime euphonium comes up, we just trash it for no reason, even though we have lots of friends that play euphonium.
The thing that always made me laugh about euphonium is like you'll have the hardest parts ever.
You can't hear them.
And no one hears them.
Yeah.
You can't hear them.
Hurricane.
As long as you play your solos, everyone's like, wow. It's a beautiful instrument. You just got to play your solos. Yep. Just noodle your way through all the other stuff.
Yep. Tuba. I love the tuba. I don't want to. Well, I do want to own a tuba. My wife would kill me though. She's already mad about the amount of stuff I have in our New York City apartment. I'm thinking about like putting up like
How do you fit all that?
people who use this in garages and stuff to take advantage of vertical spaces without installing actual shelving. You can get like it's like a grate that you can raise up and down on a pulley system. And so it kind of lives up on the ceiling, and you just kind of tie the string to the wall. I'm thinking about doing that for my my cases and just using the vertical space.
I think it's a good idea. So
Noah's
Rob Stewart,
wheels are turning.
Rob Stewart
Noah, your
actually
wheels
came.
are turning.
I know. So Rob Stewart actually came into my shop when we first moved into our shop. And Rob Stewart, of course, is a legendary brass repairman. You guys know who he is. So, he was like, hey, I'm going to come over to your shop. I got some parts I'm going to drop off for you guys. Donation to your new business. And he walked in, and my shop is tiny. It's 400 square feet. And I share that with Brad. So he's got his half and I have mine. So I have all of my horns roughly about 200 square feet. And he walks, he's like pretty small. He's like, wow, a lot of real estate on the roof. So I have a lot of stuff like hanging in the shop. It's pretty, we maximize the space.
That's what you got to do.
I'm all for it.
I'm imagining some amazing futuristic system where you just walk in and hit a button. And
it's like the dry cleaners. They just come around on the
Well, what about the what do they call those? The tubes at the bank, The pneumatic tubes. Have a pneumatic tube. You put like a euphonium mouthpiece in there. You just toss that actually across the room.
It just shoots the euphonium up.
The next shop, Noah, we're going to do that.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
I love this idea.
I like both the dry cleaner and the pneumatic tubes. We'll do both.
We get good Instagram
wondering.
engagement on that for sure.
I was really thinking people were going to start just 3D printing all their mouthpieces and just hitting a button and getting the specs, but I think we're a ways away from that.
It's pretty amazing what they can do with 3D printing. I was at JPL does like a open house once a year, and they have this amazing machine shop there. If you're into machine stuff in LA and they happen to be doing a JPL open house, you should go. But they have like the most amazing machine shop, but they have a whole section now dedicated to 3D printing in metal. And the stuff that they were showing us, these pieces that they made, unbelievable technology. Who knows what's going to come with all that, but pretty amazing.
I was going to say, I saw a 3D printed bassoon mute yesterday. I thought that was pretty cool. Not bassoon mute, excuse me, bassoon low note, like an A extension.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's amazing stuff. It's just going to keep getting better.
That's another sentence that no one's ever said.
Let's 3D print a euphonium.
Ooh.
Stop. Only one euphonium made. Well, truly awesome. We got to do this again sometime.
Guys. Yeah,
this was super fun.
We can do an annual holiday episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Breakfast tacos and bagels.
Breakfast tacos. Yeah.
Oh.
And we gotta if we're ever in the same place again at the same time, we gotta figure out a way to record live.
We do a live stream.
Well, for sure, an opportunity would be at like the ITF or something, but we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Noah, you won't be at TMEA, Noah, will you?
TBD, kind of checking schedules, but John wants me to come.
I'm trying to twist his arm.
He's trying to put the screws down on me to come for that one, but we'll see.
I have a room with a pool table. I didn't tell you guys that. Yeah.
What?
Oh well.
So if that sweetens the deal at all, Noah.
All right. Sounds good.
Party in my room.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Well, let's do this again. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolute honor to be on here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks. This was fun.